We often hear that the best revenge is success, but when you've been wounded by someone who thrives on control, manipulation, and emotional games, success alone doesn't feel like enough. You want them to feel it. You want them to understand the weight of the pain they caused. But here's the truth. You cannot teach empathy to someone who refuses to feel. Narcissists operate from a place of deep insecurity masked by superiority. They feed on reactions. Your anger, your sadness, your confusion, that's their fuel. So how do you make them feel the pain? You don't retaliate, you disconnect, you heal, and in that healing they lose their grip. They lose what they crave the most, control. The real pain for a narcissist isn't your revenge, it's your absence, it's your silence, it's your indifference. When you no longer need them, no longer explain yourself, no longer rise to defend, that's when they start to unravel. Because nothing threatens a narcissist more than losing the spotlight, losing power over your emotions, and realizing they no longer have access to the very thing they tried to break. So if you're looking for justice, choose peace. If you're seeking revenge, choose growth. And if you want them to feel the pain, they will, not through your rage but through your rise. You win not by fighting them, you win by no longer playing their game. We often underestimate just how deeply narcissists crave attention. Not the kind of attention most of us value, like respect, affection, or connection. No, for them, attention is about control. It's about knowing they can pull a string and watch you dance. That every word they speak, every manipulation they plant, every lie they tell will create a reaction. That's their goal. That's what feeds them. They don't care if it's your anger or your heartbreak. In fact, the more emotional the reaction, the more satisfied they feel. Because in their world, your emotional chaos equals their power, and the moment you react, when you shout, when you cry, when you desperately try to make them understand what they did, they win. Not because they were right, but because they made you feel wrong. They thrive on watching you doubt yourself, question your worth, and spin in circles trying to earn back a sliver of the kindness they intentionally withheld. But here's the thing, they don't want your love, they want your emotional dependence. They want to know that they can still control how you feel, that no matter how much time passes, they still own space in your mind, that you'll still wonder about them, that they still matter to you. This is the real currency for a narcissist, your reaction. So how do we take that power away? By doing something they never expect. We stop reacting. You don't respond to the blame, you don't argue with their distorted truths, you don't try to correct the story they're telling others. You simply stop showing up in their emotional arena. That space, once filled with your energy, goes quiet. You go quiet, and in that quiet, something extraordinary happens. They start to panic, because silence to a narcissist isn't peace, it's punishment. When you stop reacting, you stop fueling their illusion of importance. They start to question whether they've truly lost control. And that's where the discomfort sets in for them. They poke at you more. They might try harder to provoke you. They'll test your boundaries. But your job isn't to prove anything. It's to hold the line, because in your stillness, you're sending a very clear message. I don't need you to see my worth. I see it for myself now, and that right there. That's the pain they don't know how to process. Not because you shouted it in their face, but because they can't find themselves in your life anymore. This isn't about pretending they didn't hurt you. It's not about being emotionless, it's about being strategic with your healing. About refusing to let the very person who broke you be the one who continues to define you. You're not just walking away, you're reclaiming the energy they stole, and that's how you begin to win. Not with revenge, not with dramatic exits, but with quiet strength. With the ability to sit in your own clarity while they flail in confusion. Because what hurts a narcissist more than anything is losing the audience, losing the one person who used to react, who used to engage, who used to give them everything, and now gives them nothing. So if you're wondering how to make them feel the pain they caused, don't scream louder, go quieter, don't explain more, say less, don't stay in the game, walk off the field, that silence, that peace. That indifference, that's the sound of you winning. When someone has hurt you, deeply, intentionally, it's natural to want them to understand, to look them in the eye and make them see what they've done. We think that if we can just say it the right way, with the right words, in the right moment, they'll finally get it. That maybe this time they'll feel something. Maybe this time they'll change. But here's the hard truth. People who are committed to misunderstanding you are never going to hear you. Narcissists especially. They don't listen to understand. They listen to defend. They twist your words. They flip the blame. And somehow, even in your pain, you end up apologizing. That's why confrontation with a narcissist rarely brings closure. It brings chaos. You go in seeking resolution and leave more confused than when you started. You question yourself. You replay the conversation 100 times in your head, wondering what you could have said differently. And in doing so, you stay tethered to the very person you're trying to break free from. But there's another way, a more powerful way, one that doesn't rely on their approval or acknowledgement. It's called disconnection. Disconnection doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It doesn't mean burying the hurt or acting like you don't care. Disconnection is intentional. It's choosing with clarity to remove your energy from a system that was designed to keep you small. It's not about making a scene. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's quiet, steady, and unshakable. You stop explaining. You stop justifying. You stop hoping, and you simply leave, physically, emotionally, mentally. You detach. Now, this kind of exit doesn't come easy, because everything inside of you might scream for closure. Your heart wants to be seen. Your story wants to be heard. But you have to understand, the person who hurt you is not the one who can offer healing. That part is your job now. When you disconnect, you stop playing the role they cast you in. You stop reacting the way they expect. You stop existing in their narrative, and that's where you take your power back. What they want is engagement, any kind of engagement, a fight, a tear, a long paragraph text message, a late night call, a bitter post on social media. It all feeds them. But when you disconnect, when you walk away without explanation, they're left with something they don't know how to handle: silence. And in that silence, a narcissist loses control. They no longer have access to your emotions. They can't manipulate your tone, or your words, or your reactions. You become unavailable to their tactics, and the more unavailable you become, the more they realize they've lost something they can't easily replace. This kind of walking away, it's not weakness, it's discipline. It takes strength to look at someone who wounded you and say, "I'm not giving you any more of me, not my time, not my thoughts, not my voice." You're not ghosting, you're not avoiding conflict, you're preserving your peace, you're honoring your boundaries, and you're choosing yourself in a way that you may have never done before. Disconnection also forces you inward, and that's where the real work begins. Because the space you once filled with trying to fix or understand them is now open. And that space is where you start to rebuild, slowly, gently, on your terms. You begin to realize that you don't need their validation to move forward. That their opinion of you is not your truth. That their inability to love you well says more about their capacity than your worth. And one day, you'll look back and see that leaving wasn't the hard part, it was staying. Staying in a loop of emotional manipulation, in cycles of hope and disappointment, in a story where you were always the one bending, apologizing, shrinking. Disconnection is the break in the story. It's where you put the pen down and say, "This is not how my chapter ends." It's not about revenge, it's not about making them pay. It's about making peace with yourself. Because sometimes the most powerful move you can make isn't to stand and fight. It's to walk away. And never look back. After you've been through the kind of pain only a narcissist can cause, your first instinct might be to get even, to make them feel what you felt, to mirror the same cruelty, the same coldness, the same disregard they showed you. It feels fair, it feels justified, and for a moment it might even feel empowering, but it won't last, because deep down what you're really craving isn't revenge, it's resolution. You want your peace back? And here's the beautiful twist most people miss. Healing is the real revenge, because nothing confuses a narcissist more than seeing someone they tried to break walk away stronger, clearer, and happier without them. They expected you to stay broken. They expected the damage they caused to define you, but healing interrupts that expectation. It rewrites the story. It changes the outcome. See, narcissists don't just want to be loved. They want to be needed. They want to be the center of your world, even if it's through chaos. They want your mind to orbit around them, even if it's filled with anger. So when you begin to heal, truly heal, you do something that they didn't plan for. You stop centering them. You stop making them the reason you wake up sad, the reason you second guess yourself, the reason you can't move on. Healing isn't just about feeling better. It's about realigning with who you are without the distortion they brought into your life. It's about remembering your worth without their voice echoing in your head. It's about building your confidence from your own truth, not the false narratives they planted. And that process takes time. It takes patience. It often feels like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But with each quiet moment of reflection, each boundary you honor, each time you choose not to respond, you take a piece of yourself back. You begin to remember the version of you that existed before the manipulation, before the self-doubt, before the emotional exhaustion. Or maybe you discover a version of yourself you've never met before, stronger, wiser, more grounded. That version of you, that's what they never expected. Because while they were busy trying to tear you down, they underestimated something powerful, your ability to rebuild, not from the pieces they left behind, but from something entirely new. A foundation that doesn't include them, a story where they're no longer the main character, and when that happens, when you begin to rise, it unsettles them, not because you're attacking them, but because you're ignoring them. You're no longer explaining your side, you're no longer chasing closure, you're no longer waiting for their recognition or apology. You've stopped seeking answers from someone who was never going to give them. And that silence, that peace you now carry, that hits harder than any words ever could. It's not about pretending they didn't matter. It's about realizing they don't get to matter forever. That their chapter in your life was just that, a chapter. Not the whole book. They made you question yourself. Healing helps you find your voice again. They made you feel unlovable. Healing reminds you that you were never the problem. They created chaos. Healing creates clarity. And clarity is painful for them, because the more grounded you become, the more detached you are. The more joy you find in your own life, the more they fade into the background. They lose their significance. Not because you're trying to erase them, but because you've simply outgrown the version of you that needed them. And the most powerful part, you didn't do it to prove a point. You didn't do it to show them what they missed. You did it for you. You chose growth. You chose peace. You chose to stop bleeding from wounds they refuse to acknowledge. That's what healing is. It's not loud. It's not a performance. It's a quiet revolution inside of you that shifts everything. And when you finally reach that place where their name no longer stings, where their memory no longer dictates your day, where you can breathe without the weight of what they did, that's when you know you've already won. There's something uniquely painful about being ignored by someone who once claimed to care. It cuts deeper than any words ever could. It's not just the absence of affection. It's the absence of recognition, the feeling that you no longer matter. And when you're dealing with a narcissist, indifference becomes their weapon of choice. They thrive on attention. They thrive on being the center of your universe, whether that attention comes in the form of admiration, anger, or hurt. As long as you're reacting, as long as you're emotionally invested in them, they are satisfied, because in their world, if they aren't the focal point, they feel invisible, they feel insignificant, and that fear is what drives their behavior. But here's the thing. The worst thing you can do to someone who thrives on being the center of your world is to stop caring. And I don't mean pretending you don't care. I mean genuinely, completely, and unapologetically stepping away from the need to prove anything to them. It's like pulling the rug out from under them. You stop showing up in their emotional theater, and suddenly, the spotlight they depend on is gone. They can't perform when there's no audience. And that is where the true power of indifference lies. Indifference isn't about hatred. It's not about pretending that you're unaffected. It's about finding your own peace regardless of what they're doing. It's about realizing that you don't need them to validate your worth anymore. That the chaos they brought into your life no longer defines your emotional landscape. And once you've crossed that threshold, where their presence or absence no longer moves you. That's when you know you've reclaimed your power. What narcissists fear most is not being hated. It's being irrelevant. It's being overlooked. And when you stop reacting to their antics, you put them in a position where they are left to reckon with themselves. They have no one to control, no one to manipulate, no one to twist into believing that they hold any significance in your life. The more you let go of the need to explain yourself to them, the more you stop justifying your choices, the more you stop fighting for a resolution that will never come, the more their sense of control slips away. They start to panic because without the ability to provoke you, they no longer have any foothold in your world. They begin to feel irrelevant, and for them, that is a far more painful punishment than any direct confrontation. What they don't understand is that their absence has become your freedom. Because once you no longer require their approval, once you stop letting them dictate how you feel, you open up space for something infinitely more powerful: yourself. The more you choose indifference, the more you choose peace, the more you allow yourself to grow outside the toxic hold they had over you. You reclaim the energy that was once consumed by them, and you redirect it inward, toward your own healing, your own growth, your own future. They want to keep you in the past, in that cycle of pain and uncertainty. But indifference is your path to the present. It's the choice to stop living in their shadow. It's the choice to stop being defined by what they did to you, and instead, start defining yourself by what you are becoming. The best part, you don't need to announce it, you don't need to prove it, you don't need to explain it to anyone, least of all them. Your life, your peace, your healing, those are yours to cultivate, and once you've claimed that peace, you become unshakable. You are no longer moved by their games, their insults, or their manipulations. You've taken back control of your own emotional world, and nothing they do can take that from you. They don't get to have any more of you. And the silence you bring, the space you create, is where your strength lies. They'll never understand it, and they'll never learn how to respond to it. Because once you stop caring about what they think, you become the one thing they fear most: free. And in that freedom, you win. There's a deep truth that often gets lost in our search for justice, for retribution, or even for closure when dealing with someone who has hurt us, especially someone like a narcissist. It's easy to get caught up in trying to make them see the hurt they've caused, trying to make them understand that their actions were wrong. We want them to get it. We want them to apologize, to take responsibility. But what if the real answer isn't in proving them wrong, but in realizing that you never needed them to understand you in the first place? That's where the power of reclaiming your narrative comes in. It's the quiet, subtle act of stepping away from the idea that your worth, your happiness, or your peace is somehow tied to their opinion of you. They've spent so much time telling you who you are, telling you what you're worth, telling you what you deserve. They've crafted a version of you that fits neatly into their narrative, but you've been living in that version long enough to know it's not yours. Reclaiming your narrative is about taking back the pen. It's about realizing that you are the author of your story, and no one else gets to define it. The narcissist tried to rewrite your script by inserting doubt, insecurity, and chaos. But now, it's time to take the story back into your hands. And that begins the moment you stop letting their words and actions control your sense of self. When you reclaim your narrative, you begin to see that everything they did, every manipulation, every emotional attack, wasn't a reflection of you. It was a reflection of them. It was about their need to control, their need to feel superior, their need to feel powerful. Their cruelty wasn't about you being undeserving. It was about them needing to place you in a box that made them feel more in control of the world around them. And that's the key. You are not their reflection. You are not defined by how they treated you. You are defined by your ability to rise above it, by your resilience, by your capacity to heal, by your ability to choose peace over chaos. And the moment you reclaim your narrative, you stop seeing yourself as a victim of their behavior. You see yourself as a survivor, as someone who has the strength to move forward regardless of the pain they caused. What happens next is powerful. When you stop looking for answers from them, when you stop seeking their validation, you free yourself from the emotional prison they tried to put you in. You stop waiting for their acknowledgement. You stop expecting them to apologize. You stop hoping they'll finally get it, because you realize that their understanding of you is irrelevant to your own journey. The beauty of reclaiming your narrative is that it's not about revenge. It's not about trying to make them feel guilty or ashamed. It's about finding the truth of who you are beyond their influence, and in doing so, you become immune to their emotional manipulation. Their words no longer carry weight because you've created a new story, one where you are the hero, not the victim. It's not an easy process. It takes time to rewrite your story. It takes courage to break free from the expectations they set for you. But it starts with one simple truth. You don't need them to define you. You don't need their approval, their validation, or their permission to be who you truly are. And when you finally reach that point, when you look in the mirror and see someone who is free from the shadow of their influence, something incredible happens. You start to realize that you've always had everything you needed to move forward. You've always had the strength, the wisdom, the resilience. All you needed was to stop letting someone else control the narrative of your life. You don't need them to see your worth. You don't need them to apologize for the pain they caused. Your healing doesn't depend on their acknowledgement of what they did. It depends on your ability to reclaim your story and move forward on your own terms. And when you finally let go of the need for their approval, you unlock a freedom they'll never understand. They'll keep searching for ways to control you, but you'll be long gone, living your life on your own terms, writing your own story, and no longer giving them any space in your world. It's easy to get trapped in the cycle of blame. When someone hurts us, especially in a way that cuts deep, the instinct is to look for someone or something to blame. We want to hold them accountable, to make them see that their actions have consequences. And it's completely understandable. After all, justice feels like the only fair response when we've been wronged. But here's the thing about holding on to blame: it keeps you tied to them. It keeps you emotionally linked to someone who has shown you time and time again that they don't deserve that power over you. Blame is a heavy weight to carry, and it's a weight that you might find yourself shouldering for far longer than is healthy for you. The truth is, the longer you hold on to blame, the longer you remain tethered to the very person who caused you pain. They continue to dictate your emotional state, even if they are no longer physically present in your life. And when you're giving them that kind of power, you're giving them the one thing they crave the most: control. Now, letting go of blame doesn't mean excusing what they did. It doesn't mean pretending that it wasn't wrong or that you didn't feel hurt. It doesn't mean forgiving them right away if that's not where you're at. What letting go of blame means is that you stop giving them a seat at the table of your life. It means you stop allowing their actions to define your emotional landscape. You see, when you blame someone, you're still focusing on them. You're still giving them a place in your heart, in your mind, in your energy, and that's exactly what they want. They want to be the center of your world, whether it's through their toxic behavior, their manipulation, or their silence. They want to be the thing you're always thinking about, reacting to, responding to. But when you release the blame, you free yourself. You stop being a victim of their actions, and you start becoming the author of your own life again. You take back the control that was taken from you. You no longer allow them to dictate how you feel, how you act, or how you move forward. You let go of the hold they have on your emotional well-being. This isn't about denying the truth of what happened or pretending it didn't matter. It's about recognizing that holding on to blame only keeps you stuck in a place of hurt and anger. It only prolongs the pain. It's a way of saying, yes, that was wrong, but I am no longer going to let it define me. It's a declaration of freedom, not for them, but for yourself. Letting go of blame also means realizing that their behavior was never about you. It was about them. It was about their need for control, their insecurities, their deep-rooted fears. Narcissists, in particular, are often so trapped in their own need for validation and power that they don't have the emotional capacity to understand the impact of their actions on others. And the more you blame them, the more you give weight to their distorted view of reality. But when you stop blaming them, you start to see the truth more clearly. You were never the problem, they were. And you are no longer going to carry the weight of their dysfunction. This shift is incredibly powerful. It's a quiet rebellion against the narrative they tried to create for you. It's a way of saying, I see you, but you no longer get to be a part of my story. It's a moment of clarity where you stop letting their toxicity be your truth. And as you let go of blame, something profound begins to happen. You stop living in the past. You stop replaying the moments of hurt, the words they said, the ways they manipulated you. You stop obsessing over what they did or didn't do, and you start focusing on the future. You start focusing on your healing. You start focusing on the life you want to create without them in it. By letting go of blame, you take your power back. You stop giving them any more energy, and you start investing that energy into building something better. Something that reflects your worth, your strength, and your resilience. You stop letting them live rent free in your head, and you start filling your mind with the thoughts, ideas, and goals that serve you. This is what true freedom looks like. It's not about making them pay. It's about freeing yourself from their grip, from the need to make them understand, and from the endless cycle of blame. It's about giving yourself permission to move forward without them, without their approval, without their validation, and without their presence in your emotional world. And in that freedom, you find peace.